We have been doing very well. We are taking on digital technology in a big way, and of course, we need to continue to work hard to deal with our service industry. And as we gather here for the next 3 days, we hope that this conference will bring the experience from the different countries to bear on our deliberations. As we have been doing since the first conference, the results of these deliberations will be shared with ministries of education across the region, businesses, training institutions, so that they can be able to implement ideas, knowledge, experience, recommendations we have gained from this conference. Among the sub-themes we will address include preparing a workforce that is capable of participating at the global level, empowering youths at risk, and these are most important for us. Right now in Jamaica, we have over close to 100,000 youths who we could characterize as youth at risk in our society. We also want to look at women who are in many ways still remain underemployed, and especially in the rural areas. We also want to prepare the workforce to access jobs in the future. So not just training from now, but training so that our young people and those who we train from the future can, in fact, obtain employment. And of course, we want to emphasize sustainable development as an essential area that we must pursue in order to survive in the next millennium. Colleagues, we will be addressing major issues confronting our nation in the region and also beyond the region. Over the years, we in the School of Education at UWI have come to realize that mainstreaming TVET is the only way we will be able to increase the national and regional impact of this aspect of education. Thus, the University of the West Indies, which we would characterize from time to time as a traditional liberal arts university, has been playing a leading role in this effort. It is indeed a clear indicator of the strides that we have made so far in mainstreaming TVET. Participants, we have not only been hosting, meaning the School of Education TVET conferences, but we are involved in the delivery of the master's program in leadership in TVET and workforce development. And a similar version of the program is being, as we speak, being offered in Trinidad at the St. Augustine campus. The expectation is that the graduates will provide leadership for TVET programs delivered in the school system, business and industry, national training agencies, and other types of organizations, both locally and regionally. Foremost, our lecturers and students are conducting and publishing relevant research to ensure that TVET is sustained based on the knowledge that is unearthed and applied to solve our technological problems. The conference theme has provided the frame for an exciting and engaging conference, TVET, towards the 21st century economy, principles, strategies, and work practice. Let's continue to advance this area of education with the full enthusiasm that is required. Thank you very much. Okay, so those are my a few comments as we moved into the program for the morning. Based on the, if you go to your page 30 of the TVET conference book, we're going to have comments, synopsis from Professor Alan Morris, conference chair, and he did a fine job pulling the conference together to where we are now. We're going to have comments from our state minister representing the Minister of Education, and then partners' greetings. And we're going to have a video clip of those persons presenting from various organizations. Then there will be a cultural piece by a student from Herbert Morrison High School. Then we have our keynote presentation by Professor Dale Weber from the University of the West Indies Mona campus. Of course, the vote of thanks will be given by Dr. Marjorie Jameson Charles, coordinator of our program at the St. Augustine campus. We're going to have some goodies too, and we'll tell you more about that after the vote of thanks. And then we go to Dr. Marcelo Amande to tell us about how things will go from this point. So I'm going to call now Professor Harlan Morris to come and say something about the conference. Professor Morris.
Thank you very much, Professor Disraeli. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, sir. Yeah, good morning, good morning. So, Master of Ceremony, Professor Disraeli Hutton, Director of the School of Education. Thanks for this opportunity. Our guest speaker, Professor Dale Weber, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the Mona campus of UWI. Our minister is not here as yet. Other ministers or persons from the government, permanent secretaries, diplomatic ambassadors, executive partners, other special guests or students. I'll pause for a minute, sir. Okay, we'll clear the logistics issues afterwards. All attendees, the media, other special guests, welcome all. I think I need to welcome our Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Mr. Terlong. Welcome. We appreciate you being here. Okay, this, our fourth conference on TVET in the Caribbean, is very critical to us. I'm delighted to give you, on behalf of the Planning Committee, a brief synopsis on this conference. At this time, before I proceed, I'd like to have the organizing committee being recognized. Quickly, if you're here, just stand and be recognized. Okay. Thank you very much. Building on the previous conferences, which focused, the first one, which focused on human capacity development in the Caribbean, the second on STEM education and TVET and how that works, the third, which deals with quality TVET for regional development. These have pushed us along in the path of developing TVET. This conference will focus on 21st century strategies and work practices, very critical as we move the bar in terms of our workforce and how we engage in developing our nation. Acting on recommendations from the last three conferences, in fact, we have made concerted efforts to reduce the number of papers. We have increased the number of concurrent sessions and have included more networking time and opportunities for educational tours. We thought this was important. These were comments coming from the previous conferences, so we have adjusted to meet the comments from the evaluations. This conference, we will have over 70 presentations, which include 29, which will be in plenary sessions, and we'll have 2 workshops and 2 poster presentations. Immediately following this ceremony, we start our journey with a tour of exhibits, followed by 2 poster sessions and 5 concurrent sessions or presentations. With ample time for lunch and networking, we will return for our first plenary session sponsored by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and which focus on digital skills for the 21st century worker and ICT use. Speakers, of course, Dr. Grace McLean, Nicole Manning, and others will lead this session. This will be followed by 2 sets of concurrent sessions and our first graduate forum, which begins at 3 p.m. Our graduate students are critical in relation to these conferences. This is an avenue through which they get an opportunity to present findings from research and to engage in TVET at various levels of our economy. When I say students, I'm not talking about UWI students alone, or UWI St. Augustine and Mona. We're also talking about UTech and all the other universities in the Caribbean, and more so the ones in Jamaica who are represented on the planning committee. Day 2, we have 3 plenary sessions. The first address strand which focuses on emerging jobs, which is primarily a seminar, the first one, which we'll hear from Dr. Kerry Wallace of TEF, Maria Karshner of the World Bank, Mr. Novello of the Hotel and Lodging Educational Institute, and Jeremy Abbey of the American Culinary Federation. You can see the mix of this presentation in terms of bringing to us what it means about emerging jobs. The second plenary session will feature promoting TVET and inclusion and TVET for youth empowerment and entrepreneurship. This, of course, Dr. Carl Crow and Dr. Susan Rottencutter will be presenters. The third plenary addresses the strand sustainable financing for youth development. And of course, we cannot leave this out as a major aspect of TVET development, because financing of TVET is, well, we cannot move without financing TVET properly. We'll also look at TVET contributing to GDP. And of course, we'll hear from Professor Davidson Mampinga of Kent State University, Olivia Campbell of Sutherland, and this will begin at 2 p.m. A series of 4 concurrent presentations will take us to the end of the day. On day 3, we begin with a plenary session which speaks to strategies for industry engagement. In TVET, without industry as partners, we will just not get anywhere. We need to look at how we engage industries in a very strategic manner. Here we'll have Ms. Alicia Gladys Knight and Mr. Clifton Redder, who will present, followed, of course, by another plenary session for TVET for Sustainable Development, which will take the form of a roundtable discussion featuring Patrice Paris-Sears, Dr. Henry Gray, Alexander Danville, Robert Robinson, Marjorie James Charles, and Henry Wallace. A series of concurrent sessions will be held after this first plenary. And of course, the second graduate student forum, and 2 sets of presentations will follow. The final plenary session by Grace Kennedy will address quality assurance for effective TVET, and quite importantly, sponsored by our partner Grace Kennedy, will take a look at how we can raise the bar in terms of quality to deliver to suit industries. This, of course, will include the National Qualifications Framework, which will look at how qualifications match with what industry requirements are. This will be followed by a seminar by Mr. Carl Barrett. This seminar will include Mr. Carl Barrett and Dr. Damian Black of Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission. We draw the curtain down at approximately 2:40 p.m. with a report from our rapporteurs and, of course, our conference planning event for the future conferences. We assume that there is some sustainability in what we're doing here. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to detain you for long. I have lost some time, so I will call at this point and have the chairman move forward. I thank you and welcome to the conference. Enjoy it. And of course, we expect that we will move the bar a notch further as it relates to technical, vocational education and training for the Caribbean region, and indeed for the rest of the world. The world depends on us to do a number of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Halden, for pointing out exactly what will take place over the 3 days as far as this TVET conference is concerned. At this point, we're going to ask representing the Minister of Education, ask Mr. Orlando Turlong to come to the microphone and make his remarks for the conference.
It is indeed my pleasure to be here, ladies and gentlemen, and I must say a big Jamaican welcome and wagwan and big up on yourself and welcome to Jamrock as we focus on TVET in the Caribbean. I must say a very special welcome to Professor Disraeli Hutton, our Master of Ceremonies, Professor Halden Morris, Professor Dale Weber, Dr. Grace McLean. I don't think she's here as yet, but she'll be here for the afternoon session. Dr. Kerry Wallace, I didn't see him, but he might be here, and I have not seen him just yet. Mrs. Catherine Grigsby, Dr. Janet Dyer, who's here, Mr. Donald Webby, who might not be here either, Mrs. Odetta Rockhead Carr, Professor Stephen Bassiani, who I know I did not see, Dr. Winston Adams, and of course to you, distinguished guests and visitors to Jamaica, a warm welcome. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information is pleased to partner with the School of Education at the University of the West Indies for the staging of the 4th International Conference on TVET in the Caribbean under the theme TVET Towards the 21st Century Economy, Principles, Strategies, and Work Practice. Over the past few decades, many countries have moved to a position of technical and vocational education training into the mainstream of education systems and setting it as a priority in their education agenda. Jamaica, ladies and gentlemen, is among them as we seek to strengthen our policy and regulatory frameworks for TVET, while at the same time taking steps to improve partnerships with prospective private sector employers. By placing TVET in the mainstream of education policy, with an emphasis on practical application and extensive curriculum reform, we are effecting a significant paradigm shift. This paradigm shift is driven by the recognition that over several decades, there has been a disconnect between skills imparted by national education systems and those demanded by the workplace. This disconnect has been thrown into sharper focus in recent years with the integration of new technologies in almost every sphere of professional activity. Governments have therefore moved to close the gap between education and training, and the world of work, given the potential economic and social benefits to be derived from increasing the proportion of the population that is engaged in productive livelihoods. Rapid technological changes in the workplace and the demand for a flexible and skilled workforce in all sectors of the economy have highlighted the need for continuing education and training for workers to remain competitive in a global economy. Employers, ladies and gentlemen, are now demanding that workers for the 21st century must possess the knowledge, technical skills, and soft skills to function effectively and be competitive in the workplace. To attain this level of competitiveness, workers must therefore be lifelong learners who will continue to increase their knowledge and update their skills for upward mobility in the workplace. These are essential to making people employable, gaining access to decent work, and to staying out of poverty. In addition, we recognize that many of our Caribbean brothers and sisters have been quite mobile, meaning they have a global outlook on training and employment opportunities elsewhere. The globalization of trade means, therefore, that decisions in one country often has a significant impact on employment opportunities in another country where values and priorities may be very different. Globalization of the labor workforce means that workers have greater mobility across borders. Yet, opportunities are not uniform from one country to another, or in different segments of society within a given country. There is therefore an increasing need for specialized education in training. In some countries, ladies and gentlemen, there is a tendency to cling to traditional priorities and professions, resulting in a shortage of workers in certain specialized fields, even in a context where flexibility, adaptability, and transferability of skills are essential. I pause here to note that at the Ministry of Education, one of the things that we consistently focus on when we engage with the youth, is the need to move away from traditional forms of employment. It is important that parents and teachers therefore recognize that not every child needs to become a lawyer, or a doctor, or an engineer, or even a teacher. The skills that will take us through this 21st century, through the fourth industrial revolution, in education, workforce training, etc., are more technical skills as we have come to see. And so it is therefore important that we understand and recognize not just the value, but the potential for the future of all our Caribbean countries and the world in the TVET area. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2017, our Education Ministry launched the National Qualification Framework of Jamaica as one way of standardizing and improving the quality of training in Jamaica, putting it on par with international standards. The NQFJ bridges the gap between academic qualifications and technical vocational qualification. The focus is on creating a track for occupational degrees that is separate from traditional degrees or straight vocational qualification. In addition, the matriculation and articulation requirements of the NQF allow persons to get credits for courses done through apprenticeship or in the formal system. It is also intended to improve access to work and further learning by ensuring that qualifications are in fact relevant to employment and learning, and to meet the needs of learners within the new job market, as well as education and training institutions. by providing greater transparency within the national qualification systems, making the nature of qualifications and the relationships between qualifications, and by providing a basis for comparison of achievements across all parts of the education and training system, the NQFJ supports greater prosperity, progression, and mobility for lifelong learning through education and training pathways. Given that TVET is playing such an important role in providing the necessary skill sets required by enterprises within our economies, it is therefore imperative, ladies and gentlemen, that the expansion of technical and vocational education be a priority, that it becomes a priority objective of all our education objectives and strategies. We recognize that there will be challenges, including the relevance of the curriculum to industry needs, quality assurance in TVET provision, and teachers' competence. The ministry is, however, committed to working with training institutions and players within the industry to increase the talent pool of trained, competent, and certified persons ready for employment across various sectors. It is in this context, ladies and gentlemen, that we are encouraging and pursuing more public-private partnerships as we work collaboratively to meet the needs of industry and national economic goals. The prosperity of Jamaica, the future of the employability of our youngsters depends on the success of programs such as these. The theme chosen, therefore, for this conference is a most timely theme. As for TVET to be effective, there must be strong partnerships between training institutions and companies through which our young persons can obtain practical work experience. We trust, therefore, that all the discussions here over the next few days will be informative and practical in helping all of us to craft policies and programs that will benefit our young people, the Jamaica, our regional economies, and in the medium to long term, every single one of us. I thank you so much for having me and wish for you all an amazing conference. Thank you.
That TVET and the role of TVET is significant, and as far as I'm concerned, this significance will be deepening as we seek to expand our job offerings, and we seek to employ persons in new types of job, what we call jobs for the future. Really need TVET type training persons to engage those jobs. So let us thank those persons who participated. I think it's given us a broad perspective of what is happening at the workplace and what is necessary for TVET. Okay, we have a cultural item at this point, and DeAndre Phillip is from Herbert Morrison's high school, technical high school. DeAndre.
Are we really happy here with this lonely game we play? Looking for words to say, searching but not finding understanding anyway. We're lost in the masquerade, both afraid to say we're just too far away from being close together from the start. We try to talk it over, but the words got in the way. We're lost inside this lonely game we play. Thoughts of weeping disappear every time I see your eyes. No matter how hard I try, yeah, to understand the reasons that we can carry on this way. We're lost in a masquerade. Hey, both afraid to say we're just too far away from being close together from the start. We try to talk it over, but the words got in the way. We're lost inside this lonely game we play. Thoughts of weeping disappear every time I see your face. No matter how hard I try to understand the reasons that we can't carry on this way. We're lost in a masquerade, in a masquerade. That was a little bit of jazz, you know. So the other song I'll be doing is a song that most of you should be familiar with. It's a chronic song. So enjoy, yeah. You see your snap your fingers? Yeah, enjoy the music. When I look at where I'm coming from, I know I'm blessed, and I close my eyes and smile. Sometimes I feel like the richest man in Babylon, and I've done my best, so everything's alright inside. Oh, every morning, if you know the chorus, I can't sing it. I rise and stare at the sun. I know it is a blessing, so when the evening comes, I lift up my eyes to the hills. I'm blessed, oh man. Hey, with my two hands in the air, as for your turn. I'm not hearing you guys. Sing it. Ooh, I can't get my two hands in the air as far as I can. Oh, every morning I rise, I stare at the sun. I know it is a blessing, yeah. Lift up my eyes to the hills, I'm blessed, oh man. Ooh. Sometimes I'm lost and far from home, but I'll find my way. I follow my heart, I know I'll be found someday. While I'm lost, I learn and live. What do you say? Let's have a good time until that day. Oh, every morning I rise, I stare at the sun. I know it is a blessing. So when the evening comes, I lift up my eyes to the hills, I'm blessed, oh man. With my two hands in the air as far as I can. Oh, 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 every morning I rise, I stare at the sun. I know that it is a blessing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Lift up my eyes to the hills, I'm blessed, oh man. As far as I can. I can, yes. Lift up my eyes to the hills, I'm blessed, oh man. Ha! With my two hands in the as far as I can. Oh, 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 as far as I can. I can, with my two hands in the air as far as I can. Hey, oh, 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 yeah. With my two hands in the air as far as I can. Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Let us give a even more rousing applause for good. So we are making good progress with our agenda, and at this point, we're going to ask Professor Dale Weber, Pro Vice Chancellor of Mona and the University of the West Indies, to give the keynote address. Just to say that we did everything to make sure the professor is here to expose him fully. We made no claim about his knowledge of TVET, but we had a responsibility, Professor, to make you aware and have you here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. Professor Hutton, State Minister in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, the Honorable Alanda Terrelon, Professor Halden Morris, Dr. Dyer, who I realize just stepped out, partners all, colleagues, friends, especially those visiting Jamaica for the first time, good morning to you all. I would have started by, but I'm not sure that I would have the right key. Because having the right key is often the most important thing to opening the door. And opening the door allows you access to where you want to go. Knowledge is power, but from what I've read from my colleagues, and I will say more about that shortly, TVET is access. So knowledge doesn't ensure employment, but skill does. So TVET clearly is the access to that employment which takes you forward. And I say that having been principal of the University of West Indies Mona campus for all of 10 months, and it's been a very interesting 10 months, I've had visits from both Professor Morris and Professor Hutton who have impressed on me the need for us to engage. And I see our new head of our School of Education, Dr. Rainford, and for us to engage in education as a process, but also as a product. For us to look at those who come through the process, not just as individuals gaining knowledge, gaining education, but in fact the best way for us to articulate what we do. And if we do that properly, we really don't even need marketing and communication, because those who are leaving continue to speak about what they have gained and who they have become. So knowledge as one thing is important, but skill perhaps is equally or more important. The term TVET, from what I have read, is something that came about in 1999 in Seoul. And the thought there was, how can we bring different thought processes into a single context? World leaders and international organizations gave credence to the provision of skilled workers being fully equipped to take advantage of opportunities. I guess it took Jamaica a little time to get there, because our TVET policy is 2012. With a goal to provide a national framework for the development and sustainability of TVET in the Jamaican education training system. Some lofty policy aims to guide the development of comprehensive integrated TVET systems, to create a coherent framework for the TVET systems, to improve the quality of TVET at all levels, to strengthen the culture of entrepreneurship, and to guide the establishment of a sustainable financing for TVET structures. To do that, too few individuals, in my estimate, from what I've read, were involved, and we didn't have enough of a pathway. The policy areas that have been enunciated since tell us more about what has to be done in terms of access, equity, and relevance, governance, quality and quality assurance within TVET, financing, which has been mentioned, curriculum development and making it a part of the curriculum with its own certification, research, innovation, creativity, and constant capacity building. So since 2012, it would be fair to say that governments, institutions, agencies, and organizations, individuals have all worked to put policies in place to operationalize what we have as Jamaica's TVET platform. It has not always been an organized or orchestrated approach, but we have made progress, and the fact that you're having your 4th biennial conference tells me that you have continued steadfastly to grow in terms of what you've been trying to do. Today, as we embark on the 4th International Conference on TVET within the Caribbean, we should pause to celebrate how far we've come. We should also recognize those who have contributed, and by those I mean all of you, because you are the champions. As we look at TVET, 21st century economy, things are changing. Principles, strategies, and practices will need to change. TVET as an entity serves multiple purposes. One key purpose is to prepare people for work. Preparing the youth for work is a very important part of that, because the youth are in fact the future, and that's how you get the pay forward. Global statistics tell us that young people under the age of 25 are less likely to find work than adults. That's from the ILO. So they need to engage with TVET right away. Global youth unemployment rate stands at 13%, while the general unemployment rate looks at about 4.3%. 621 million young people aged 15 to 24 are not employed, not trained, or not enrolled in an educational institution, which means they are at a significant disadvantage. Almost 90% of all young people live in developing countries where TVET needs to be ramped up. And youth are approximately 3 times more likely to be unemployed over time than adults. With all of that, it tells us that, so if we manage TVET as a process and as a platform, we're doing multiple effects. We're not just educating, we're not just informing, but we're actually giving tools to those who need it to make that step forward. There is good news, therefore. Owing to the initiatives that have been ongoing, and your initiative is amongst them, this is about to turn around, where we can make TVET more readily available. The TVET programs facilitate learning and development as people master skills that they are able to use continuously over time. It supports self-employment through entrepreneurship and training. It gives continuous professional development. It enables a worker to continually reinvent him or herself, maintaining relevance in his field of work, or they can completely switch. A recent study at the University of the West Indies tells us that the average student, meaning 53% of our students, will change their career within 10 years of having completed a first degree, which means retooling. How is that retooling going to happen? Well, there are many ways it can be embraced. It can be a knowledge retool, but I put it to you that as we move forward and as you grow older, the ability to do a range of things is accentuated using the TVET platform. From a developmental point of view, TVET facilitates economic growth by increasing the productivity of workers within the work that they're in and the work that they're going to be doing in the future. The growing problem of youth unemployment is of major concern to most governments. Young people without jobs or without hope is a problem. It leads to crime, violence, lack of confidence. There are many things that we can stem by putting work in the hands of students, in the hands of young ones, instead of putting other tools. An example is the UWI film industry, where a camera has been put in the hand of a youngster who would normally have put a gun. That youngster now has an opportunity. It's a different kind of shooting, but they're going to be taking advantage of their lives and be able to use what they have been taught continuously, to the point where some of those youngsters are now not just making their own films, but have gone to other extents. I saw one last week at the launch of GATFest, where one has gone underwater to capture what's happening within that realm to bring it to those who can't get there. Creativity. Our job using TVET is to unlock the potential, give them the opportunity so that they can take it to places that we never dreamt of. TVET is a prime vehicle for workforce development, and countries that need workforce development need to embrace this more readily. Previously marginalized within many governments, it is very good to hear Minister Terrellang talk today about the allocation of resources in national education and what should be going towards TVET. But we need to recognize that TVET needs to be brought with academic knowledge-based teaching into one central pool. The idea of two different stems needs to be changed. In the past decade or so, we have seen a number of TVET policies and strategies and frameworks being presented. The improvement is aimed at reforming and strengthening the certification process, which is an important part because many of us will look at TVET and think, oh, they're just doing a thing. But that thing is very important. I stopped this morning and browsed outside, and I was overwhelmed with the entity out there that is doing welding and the certification that they have for the welding. So my challenge to them right away was, do you do underwater welding so that we can take it a step further? You will tell by now that I'm a marine biologist who's become a principal. Government authorities have also understood that foreign direct investment is an important, complex, and difficult scenario, but it is enhanced by having TVET as a platform. The major workforce pull factor for FDI is TVET. Acknowledging the importance of TVET in 21st century economies is therefore pivotal if governments are going to take control of their economies. Our economy that has turned the corner and prosperity seems to be right in front of us to grab, we need to work to maintain that by using TVET. We need to improve the relevance, the quality, and employability of training. That's your first and perhaps most important goal. High training skills and a range of skills with a range of qualifications and certifications is something that we can do and we ought to be doing. Improvement in the policy environment in terms of management of the training provision. So who trains those who are training? and how do we ensure that they are doing the right things? That's a whole new gamut. And I'm pleased to hear that so many of our universities are doing it. I know from what my colleagues in the Faculty of Humanity and Education tell me, we have many programs that look at TVET. In fact, the Workforce Development Program that was recently promulgated at university tells me, as I do the reading, that we're doing this. But we need to be doing this with other partners. So I was glad to hear that other universities are also doing it. Because, let me say it clearly, the University of the West Indies, we will always claim to be the largest. We will always claim to be the best. But we will never claim to be the only, and we will never claim to be the repository of all. We must find the strengths where they are, accentuate those strengths, not try and develop on areas that we are weak, because there are other entities that can do it better than we can. We will work together. We also want to ensure flexibility in training in terms of TVET. Again, from the little I've read, it would appear to me that if you're going to be a TVET learner, you are a lifelong learner, and you keep going back and you keep building on what you've learned before. Whether it is a new skill set, whether it is new technology, whether the technology has moved and you need to catch up with it, or whether you would like to move somewhere else in the business or in the organization, the TVET lifelong learning goal allows you to do that. I'm sorry Ms. Dyer isn't here, because talking about the merger of all the various entities that are now going into HEART, the one that really touched my heart was the what used to be Jamal. And I think, okay, so is that going to get lost in HEART? But she reassured me this morning when we spoke that putting the thought processes together that were created for all of these entities, they will remain. And in fact, putting TVET in the hands of those who are learning and learning at different rates and learning at different times empowers them 3 times more than when they were doing it outside of that realm. So it must go hand in hand, and I'm very pleased that that's happening. Integrating ICT into TVET, that's one of the strands that we're having over the next couple of days. I implore you to look at how this happens. This generation now that's learning, you just have to think of their basic inherent skill sets. I don't know about you, but when I need anything done on my phone, I give it to my daughter. And I asked her why. Do you like to hear a story? So I asked her, so how did you do that? And she said, well, Daddy, you just... sorry, she used one hand. I'm using 2. And I'm saying, so why were you able to do that? And she said, well, this is logical and this follows, and the brain that they're being trained with, they're born with and being trained with, that's a different thing altogether. So we need to ensure that as we change TVET, we need to put that thought process in there. And the most important thing she taught me that day is, Daddy, you're too afraid. You're afraid to touch a button and lose data. I can find it back. You're afraid to do something and lose something, or you will... No, you're always cautious. And my generation at least, work with a fair amount of caution, and we plan things very carefully. No, the generation of youths now, they want it now, and they can do it now, and they're programmed to do it now. Is our TVET geared to give it to them now? So I would like to say, integrating ICT into TVET is a very important part of the technology-mediated learning requirement that we need to put on a platform, and I'm pleased that that's one of the stems. We also need to look at revamping what we do. What are our successes? So we talked about tourism, we talk about agriculture, we talk about manufacturing. There's so many places that what we do within a TVET setting morphs into the day-to-day operation. So that every Monday morning when the manager calls and says, okay, what's our production line in this management? Or what's our room allocation? We should be able to use those who have been trained, not just catch a skill, but now been trained using the TVET platform to make that shift in management. So that the manager now realizes, oh, I need to go back to school, or I need to get hold of that so I can be able to manage that in a better way. So we need to revitalize the key sectors that we consider important as we are now. Also remembering that jobs of the future are going to change. What we consider jobs now, there are many jobs that won't be around by 2030. We need to start training for those, and many of them are actually hands-on TVET-enabled jobs. So the University of the West Indies is committed to our regional development through education and training. since we've started the TVET and workforce development program, and we know that they play a critical role in sustainable social, ecological, and economic development, it is important that the UWI be involved in training to this area. And I charge those who are here carrying the task from all campuses, and those who are about to take over the roles, and those who are interested to get on board and become a participant. Doing it at various levels is important because you do want to maintain the rigor of what we do. You do want to offer it at an undergraduate level. You do want to offer it at a graduate level. You should have a PhD in the delivery of how we do TVET assessment, analysis, teaching, learning, because that is now an industry by itself. Who do we want? We want to target you. We want to target educational leaders at institutions, because your institution, if you're here and you're a principal, if you're here from UTech, from Northern Caribbean, from wherever you are, you need to be thinking, so how does TVET become a part of not just what I teach, but what I do? We need to train managers. We need to train people who are in operations. We need to look at educators from all components, instructors, and we need to look at engineers, technologists, those who are using their hands, using their minds simultaneously, because they're the role models that our TVET plant is going to work from. We want to satisfy the CARICOM goals in terms of a region that is TVET driven. We want to encourage and facilitate new quality research into how TVET can help us to grow. Because remember, all our Caribbean nations are on this cusp of economic development and are wondering which way to go. This could be the key, that unlocks the potential as to where they could go. We want to develop candidates, all levels, who can participate and do the various aspects of teaching and research. The socio-economic development of countries depend on how we design our plans, how we execute them, and how we ensure that we integrate our TVET into our curriculum. Whether we use traditional teaching mechanisms, we create special schools, we use NGOs, or we use special platforms, there are so many ways that we can make it happen. The key is to keep communicating. And I go back to the ICT as a communication tool to ensure that what we do, and then what we do is at a common standard. In conclusion, I leave you with a couple of points for your thoughts. Investing in TVET is investing in national socio-economic development. Because we talk about how we're going to fund it and we keep looking at poor Minister Terrelong. It is not the government alone that needs to fund this. We need private sector funding. We need public sector funding. And as soon as we can educate all sectors as to the value of the TVET, you'll be surprised how easy it is to get that funding on board. What you do need to do is to create a special repository, a special vehicle that will allow us to take control of those funds and manage them in a meaningful way. We need to look at tax policies, taxation regimes, how we can incentivize the industry, how we can incentivize the industry of teaching TVET and of doing TVET, the skill development that comes with it, tax rebates, companies providing experiential learning possibilities, internships. Is there a way we can make that happen and make it more viable? And finally, we should then say to the government, how can we encourage domestic production of goods and services along with the value-added chain, which is usually a TVET extension on our primary commodities, in favor of seeing an economy that is going to continue to grow? TVET plays a role as a catalyst as well as an enabler. It plays a role as a developer as well as a vision citer, and we need to take control of that. As we move forward, I ask you to explore over the next 3 days all the possibilities that the strands offer. Where possible, jump from strand to strand. Learn as much as you can, because you are the agents that make TVET work. I thank you. I wish for you a wonderful conference.
This is, I call, wide-ranging presentation from our principal. Principal, sir, we're going to have to consult with you, more regularly, because you seem to have a full picture of what is required. And I know that we are taking notes. I know that we have the thing recorded. This we're going to share with our students, because exactly what you have spoken about, those are some of the things that we need to pursue and we need to start now. We're going to move now for the vote of thanks.
I feel very privileged today and honored to be given the opportunity to extend the vote of thanks on this 4th International Conference on TVET in the Caribbean, with the theme towards the 21st century economy, principles, strategies, and work practice. I want to start by drawing on the following quote by an unknown author, which reads, "Hem your blessings with thankfulness so that they do not unravel." So today, on behalf of the committee, it is time to ensure that our blessings do not unravel by thanking a number of people and organizations who played instrumental roles in making the conference a reality. I would first like to express profound gratitude to the Minister of State for his passion and his insightful message that resonates with us in TVET and workforce development. We are especially heartened to feel your passion and also to hear your ministry's commitment to the development of TVET. Thank you. We acknowledge that the TVET community, in collaboration with other members in the Caribbean, we are given the charge to take a leadership role in TVET. We will endeavor to collaborate with all industry partners to ensure that there is a symbiotic relationship between education and industry to realize our timely and relevant theme. Thanks for stimulating us to move beyond the traditional education system to a more progressive and transformative one that would facilitate TVET for sustainable regional development. You have given us lots of food for thought. Our keynote speaker, what can I say? Your message timely and relevant, and we will endeavor to ensure that we have the right keys in the development of the 21st century. We know that the UWI's AAA strategy facilitates the development of the competent graduate to realize the conference theme. Your recommendation for the collaboration with others is well received. Many thanks. Sincere thanks to all the partners who assisted in various ways to ensure that we have a platform for discourse on TVET issues. Among them, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, UNESCO, Trust NTA, Grace Kennedy Limited, Tourism Enhancement Fund Jamaica, Sutherland, the University of Technology Jamaica, University of the Commonwealth Caribbean. Your contribution to this conference is memorable. We are elated that you recognize the importance of TVET and your contribution to the intellectual discourse on issues of TVET in the Caribbean and beyond. To our sponsors and exhibitors, Halston Limited, Deltec Company Limited, Caribbean Development Bank, Carl Long, Seabury, National Supply, and eLearning Jamaica, a resounding thank you for your confidence in the sustainability of TVET and your sponsorship. Mr. DeAndre Phillip, an outstanding performance. One love, one heart, blessings. To our other keynote speakers, we have no doubt that given the theme of the conference, you will engage in in-depth discourse on several key issues of extreme relevance for TVET in the Caribbean and beyond. We look forward to stimulating conversations. To our presenters, thank you for sending your papers and making the commitment to interrogate TVET issues and your willingness to disseminate your knowledge and experience with us. We look forward to the discussions, To the other delegates at the conference, your presence is recognized and we thank you for attending. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, an event of this magnitude, involving many participants and presenters from so many countries, requires immense planning and preparation. We have been fortunate to have a team of very motivated and competent colleagues. Let's give them a round of applause. I would like to commend the members of the Planning Committee and everyone who worked tirelessly to make this conference a reality. I am convinced that in the remaining days, participants and presenters will engage in fruitful dialogue that will ensure TVET is even more relevant and that we are making strides towards realizing our theme. We cannot thank everyone enough for their involvement and their willingness in the successful completion of the task. Once again, I want to express heartfelt gratitude. And I also want to end with a quote from William Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. I can no other answer make but thanks and thanks. May God bless this conference.